of it. Ceann Comhairle, thanks for the opportunity to contribute today briefly on the Energy Bill 2016, which had its origins, of course, in the 2014 Energy Miscellaneous Bill. I've long called for the reform of the Commission for Energy Regulation, SER, but I'm strongly opposed to the inclusion of water in SER's remit, and I believe that the additional powers being given to SER, while welcome, may do little to actually improve competition in the energy sector. Minister, over recent Dáil terms, I've been an outspoken critic of the weaknesses of SER and its lack of action over many years on price transparency and market concentration in energy. Indeed, the renaming of SER to the Commission for the Regulation of Utilities, CRU, provided for in this bill seems just an administrative step purely due to the inclusion of the regulation of water services in its remit. But apart from the name change, what will the bill actually do to strengthen SER's market regulatory power? I note there is no provision to include, for example, motor and heating oils in the remit of SER, yet many of the complaints made by our constituents over the years relate to the failure of oil companies to promptly pass on falling oil and gas wholesale prices to consumers, while of course any higher spikes in the price of these fuels were immediately passed on to drivers and households. Am I okay to continue, Ceann? Thanks. The neoliberal model of privatising essential services and turning citizens into customers for those key services, pioneered in the United States and the UK from the early 1980s, I believe is reflected in Section 4, or Part 2 of this bill. The Water Services Act of 2013, which I firstly opposed, of course, expanded SER's remit to include the so-called, and I quote, economic regulation of water services. End quote. Section 4 now reiterates that change in the alteration to the new title of Commission of Regulation of Utilities, CRU. Like the Water Services Act itself, this change of role is predicated, I believe, Ceann Comhairle, on the future privatisation of water supplies. The fact that the Fine Gael Fianna Fáil administration, which we now have in this Dáil, has strongly retained the Irish Water Company model shows that despite their protestations that those parties both have future plans to privatise our domestic and commercial water supplies. The experience of the gas, electricity and oil markets is clearly to be replicated in water through Irish Water at first. We recall how the Fine Gael Labour government sold off Bord Gáis Éireann at the earliest opportunity and retained only the pipework with Air Via, and how the same government ended our last foothold in a national airline with the sale of Aer Lingus. I welcome Part 3, Section 5, the power to carry out investigation and impose administrative sanction, where the powers of the Commission will be enhanced. Currently, of course, SER may revoke a licence, and this bill provides for further administrative sanctions, such as the seeking of High Court compliance orders and the imposition of fines. But our constituents will ask, Minister, why are those powers only enhanced to extend to administrative sanctions, and why are there not clear criminal sanctions for company principles applied when there is alleged market fixing or certainly price gouging being carried on. New sections 56 and 58, also under Part 3, amend the 1999 Act and allow for the provision of the appointment of inspectors and for their powers. New sections 59 through to 66 provides for the action which must be undertaken by these inspectors once they've completed their investigations, as well as the action arising therefrom. And of course, section 59 provides for the completion of the draft investigation report, which the body being investigated will have the opportunity to make submissions on. The inspector, of course, cannot make any recommendations on the imposition of sanctions, and the subsequent sections here provide for oral hearings, court procedures, appeals, and the new section 66 is the section which provides for the power to impose administrative sanction. Again, I wonder why only administrative, Minister, when there's clear evidence of price fiction or other interference with energy markets. Why is there not provisions for sanctions under criminal law? Indeed, we must ask, Minister, has SER ever never been fit for purpose. I think probably when you're on this side of the House, you would have sometimes questioned some of the decisions that Sarah made. We do get, I have to say, on the positive side for Sarah, particularly since there have been critical contributions by, I think, probably yourself as well as myself, Minister, over the years, that the more information is being provided to us now on a very regular basis about how decisions are made in relation to pricing. But Sarah, I believe, has failed to regulate price gouging, and in the last Dáil I called for its abolition and to start again. At the very least, the regulation of the energy section requires a total relaunch and rebranding, I believe. Now Sarah has been given also a totally unnecessary role in the disastrous mismanagement of Irish water. Irish consumers have had to endure huge increases, of course, in electricity and gas prices over the years, and a recent Eurostat report showed that we had the third highest energy price in the European Union, or maybe you said, Minister, yourself, the second highest, was it, in some areas of energy. When the EU taxes and levies are disregarded in the EU-wide country comparison, yet Ireland indeed comes out at the second highest. While our lack of indigenous energy and the burdensome PSO levy to stimulate production of renewable energy have played significant roles in our high energy prices, the existing regulator, I believe, has simply failed in its primary function of invigilating Irish energy markets. As a result, Ireland continues to have a significant cohort of citizens suffering energy poverty each winter. And I remember in the past, when I was an energy spokesperson for another party in this House, how we drew attention at the time. Well, we have a lot in common, Minister. I drew attention, though, to the levels of energy poverty, and to constituents I would know, who put on their top coat at night and wouldn't put on the gas and so on, trying to desperately keep the price down. So I think we're all familiar with that, and it's something that we need to attack. Recent winters, the winter gone by there was some very cold months, and it's something that we need to address. When I was energy spokesperson, as I said previously, the figure was around 10% of our population suffering in this way. And when you have instances, as I said, of seniors wearing their coats indoors in order to keep warm in December, January and February, you have a serious problem as a nation. Well, while there's been a 37% decrease in wholesale gas prices since May 2015, SER have now called for a 32% increase in the public service obligation levy in the PSO. And I read their report closely. I realise there is a public consultation on the proposal, but this proposed increase will completely counteract all of the recent falls in energy prices across the market. SER has estimated that the PSO levy pot will need to rise from €325.3 million to €440.9 million to ensure security of supply. But the PSO has skyrocketed, Minister, since 2011, and if the proposed new levy of €441 million is approved, it will have increased by nearly 400% since 2011-2012, when the levy raised about €92 million. Domestic consumers will be hard hit individually, with the annual amount jumping on their bills from €60 to just under €80 per customer. So this is a very significant part of each hard-pressed householder's annual bill. Section 15 of Part 5 of the bill, the Wholesale Energy Market and Transparency, provides for the increase of penalties for breaches of REMIT, the European Union Regulation on Energy Market Integrity and Transparency. And I have to say these provisions seem very welcome, Minister. Again, I worry, I think, again, that they're just administrative and will not be a sufficient deterrent for bad practice or even perhaps criminal malpractice. This section also, I know you might say, under company law and other law, the other areas of our administration and legislation, that this whole area would be covered. But again, I think, given the kind of price gouging, I believe, that's happened over recent years, that we do need to send a very strong message in our legislation, directly energy legislation. This section also refers to the possibility of forum shopping and market manipulators. And again, how will this be policed, Minister, with regard, for example, to the All-Ireland and EU wholesale market? There are a number of miscellaneous amendments to various acts provided for in the bill, and Part 6 amendments to the Sustainable Energy Act 2002. Section 17 provides for amendment to the 2002 Act regarding appointments to the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland Board, the SCAI Board. And Section 20 of Part 7, amendments to NORA, to the National Oil Reserves Agency Act 07. 7 inserts a new section, subsection 43A, which provides for the exchange of information on oil data and payment of NORA levies. And Section 22 of Part 7 discusses biofuel obligation, account holder certification and publication of the terminators on NORA's website. Termination on NORA's website. And Section 24 provides for an increase in the deadline for NORA issuing notices to 75 days from 35 days, and therefore increasing flexibility. So most of these parts of the legislation seem welcome enough. An important element of this bill, of course, Concordia, is the reference to our cross-border trade in electricity as per EC Regulation 714/2009 regarding such exchanges. And Part 4 of the bill, of course, amends the Act of 1999 to provide for such changes to the single electricity market of the Republic and of the North. Of course, in March 2009, we had a historic moment when Airgrid PLC purchased Sony, and that was something many of us, who were interested in energy in the noughties, it was something that we saw that might happen, and which was good, I think, ultimately for energy security in our whole island. So the Sony, of course, is the system operator for Northern Ireland, which is the TSO, the transmission system operator in the north. And together they operate as a single electricity market operator, the CMO, across the whole island. The question, of course, has to be asked, Minister, has your department been tasked with examining what impacts Brexit might have on this? And obviously that's something that we will have to watch very, very closely, because there were so many important initiatives to try and increase energy transfers between our north and south and the two islands, and quite clearly it's of core concern to us that we retain the security that we would have or the amount of security we have at the moment. I welcome the inclusion of Section 16 of Part 4 relating to an energy strategy statement, and this provides for the submission of a 3-year energy strategy statement to the Minister, which must be laid before the Houses and subsequently published on the Commission's website. And I think again the whole area of energy is something that most citizens they have quite a strong interest in, and it's a very interesting portfolio. I think we have another minister here, a former minister here behind us, and I think people, for example, I remember constituents drawn to my attention the achievement, I think it was of Portugal, of running on its own power for a particular period of time, and how it had joined other European Union countries in being in its major power grid, having been, if you like, powered by Portuguese renewable energy. And there have been other countries, I believe, that have passed that milestone in the past. So this will be a big challenge for you now in relation to, I suppose, the climate change designation. By the way, another thing that's come up you might refer to is when will you become the Minister for Bins? Because, as somebody said, you've been given a hospital pass by the scrum half, Mr. Minister Coveney of this government, and it's now heading across. That rugby football is heading across to your hands. Because I was asked by your department just today, I think, to refer things still to Mr. Coveney. So perhaps you might be able to give us an indication when you'll actually catch that ball. Sorry. Okay, well, yeah, but okay. The 3-year energy statement, I think that's a very welcome and it'd be very interesting and helpful, I think, for deputies and our citizens. And of course, it's to document objectives, outputs, resources, and those statements, excluding the first, must also include reviews of the effectiveness of the previous strategy. This will provide an opportunity, of course, for reflection and improvement if implemented correctly. Of course, it's heartening to learn of developments, as I was mentioning, in renewable energy provision, especially in Northern Europe, and the manner in which several states and major cities have become independent of fossil fuel imports. And clearly the invigilation and regulation of wider energy markets across Ireland, Britain and the EU is critical to energy independence and energy security, and I hope that will be the challenge that you'll be able to address closely in your period in government. You said yourself earlier this month, Minister, at the launch of Engineers Ireland State of Ireland 2016 report, that the overdependence on fossil fuels challenges all of us to work together to find a balance balanced and sustainable energy mix, end quote. This issue of climate change and sourcing alternative sustainable energy supplies is a huge challenge facing the country and indeed the planet in coming years. Not only do we have targets to meet under the European Union Renewable Energy Directive, the United Nations COP21 agreement, we also have the reality of dealing with more extreme weather events that climate change is bringing to our daily lives. And we had all the horrendous flooding and so on for citizens around our country a few months ago. Engineers Ireland's report helpfully had a focus on energy and has put forward some useful recommendations, Minister, including the implementation of the recently published Energy White Paper, the retrofit programmes of homes and public buildings, and converting the national bus fleet and the Minister's cars, of course, to hybrid, electric or compressed natural gas CNG energy. Of course, significant investment is required to tackle the impact of our energy usage on climate change, but it's a matter of investment now, proactively, to lessen the possibility of reactive costs such as fine and clean-up costs after increased severe weather events. So clearly, Minister will have in his period of office, and with hopefully the redirection of the department, renaming of the department, a tremendous focus on the challenge of climate change. Sustainable Energy Ireland has said that €35 billion is required over the coming 35 years to reduce the levels of carbon consumption in dwellings. Targets set for Irish hospitals to halve their carbon emissions by 2020 simply won't happen without significant investment. For just take that example, Minister. I believe you will soon be publishing the energy research strategy, and do you not agree the time has come for action and implementation of best practice in reducing carbon emissions and energy consumption? Your government can have any number, of course, of white papers and research strategies, but without the key political leadership and actual action, there will be no change. We'll continue to miss our targets, and climate change, of course, doesn't wait for any one of us or for our nation. We clearly need to link this action to the budgetary process and restore the practice of carbon-proof in our annual budgets. I know, Minister, that a number of us are involved in this arrangements for the new budgetary committee, and obviously one of the areas, I think, and I think other deputies would agree, in the proofing of budgets, certainly. I think we should go back. I know I've been highly critical of the Green involvement in the Fianna Fáil government in the past, but it was interesting having former Minister Gormley, I think it was, or the deputy who was behind me, coming in with a carbon proofing statement, and perhaps that's something you could try to get into, Budget 2017. One of the few benefits, as I said, of the government, I believe, from 27 was the addition of the outline carbon budget. So, in conclusion, Corla, I'm strongly opposed to the inclusion of water service in the bill, which suggests that I believe the Fianna Fáil Fine Gael agenda remains to privatise our domestic water supply. I think the administrative sanction of fines, Part 3, 4 and 5, are welcome, don't go far enough to combat and stamp out market manipulation and malpractice. And I sincerely hope that this energy bill, though, it does mark a significant improvement in energy regulation and informs our conversations around renewable energy and the changes we need to make urgently. Thanks, Cairn.